Hi, everybody. Dan Illman and Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Friday, December the 1st. Well, it's opening day of the championship meeting at Gulfstream Park, so we're going to take a look at race number 8. Let's throw up the field. This is a high-level allowance race with a $62,500 claiming option, but there are several stakes class horses in here, Mike.
It's a pretty good field. It feels like the strength of it, Dan, is to the outside where the two morning line favorites are, the 9 and the 10. Those two horses don't have to win here, but they're the horses to beat.
And those horses have a good amount of early speed. Not surprising, there is expected to be a ton of speed in this race. As we throw up our Timeform US pace projector, you'll note the red bar indicating a fast pace is expected. And the number 9, Yes I Am Free, the number 10, Bad Beat Brian, the two favorites on the morning line, they're expected to be part of the pace, along with the 6, Zarak, who has shown a lot of speed, albeit on the Tapeta surface at Gulfstream.
Yeah, we'll see if Zarak can bring that speed over to turf. He does have turf experience in South America as a younger horse, Dan, so maybe he'll bring that speed into this race. I'm just not sure if it helps him if he does.
Real hard to come from far off of the pace, going 5/8 of a mile on the lawn at Gulfstream. But if you believe this pace will collapse and that this horse can get a trip, the number 2, Suzak, has the fastest late pace rating according to Timeform US. Let's start things off with the number 1, Avant Glory. This is a horse trying turf for the first time, Mike. And I look at the grass pedigree, I don't see a ton. Kozan wins about 9% with turf sprinters. This horse is pretty quick, run well on dirt, has run well on synthetic. I think he'll probably take to the turf. He just catches a tough spot.
It's not an easy spot for him. I suppose he could fall into a decent trip here, Dan. He's got good tactical speed if he can transfer his form over to the turf here. Listen, he's a big price in here. If you felt like this was a spot to take a shot with him, I won't argue too hard. I just didn't really see that much turf pedigree here.
Not sure what to make of the number 2, Suzak, who was stakes place sprinting, going 6.5 furlongs in France last year. Came over to north middle distances, raced okay both times, then went to the shelf for a very long time. Returned going 6 furlongs at Aqueduct, got wired that day. They ran 1-2 around the track. Now blinkers and cutting all the way back to 5. I wonder if it's too sharp for him.
I wonder if it is too. I mean, the clock's starting to tick on this horse now. After he won those last 3 starts in France last year, they paid a lot of money for this horse to send him over to Grand Motion. Like you, I thought maybe he ran deceptively well in those first 2 starts down here early last year. Missed a lot of time. He didn't really do a lot last time, Dan, but that's also the kind of race where, to me, a horse like him had no chance in there. That race was dominated up towards the front. Nobody really made up any ground through the stretch of that race. He didn't run great there, but maybe he just needed it. There are things to like about this horse. 20-1 seems like too big a price to me.
Mike Welsh and crew gave some nice comments to this horse in the opening day edition of the DRF Clock Report. Check it out, drf.com. Mamba on 3, the number 3, has good turf form and is coming into this race in good overall form after a runner-up effort going 5/8 of a mile on the Tapeta surface. This is a similar class level, just going to miss by a neck. This horse is tactical enough where he's fast enough to get position without being outrun, but doesn't need to get cooked on a duel.
Yeah, it's true enough. And, I realize they're switching surfaces again now off of what I guess we could consider the 2 best races of his life, Dan. But it seems like he handles turf just fine. So I won't be surprised when he just runs as well on the surface, which here he could get the right trip in this race. I don't love him, but I don't hate him.
The number 4, Axthelm, was graded stakes placed going a mile earlier in his career. It's fair to say he hasn't exactly panned out as that kind of a horse, but he exits a promising enough try at Keeneland, where he finished 3rd in an allowance race during their fall meet. Now, he was wired in this race, but he was wired by a 1,000,000-to-1 shot.
Didn't like that about him in here, Dan. I don't like the horse that won this race at all. And of course, this horse was favored in there. It's not like you could watch the race back and feel like he was compromised by the way it was run. He was right up close. And he just doesn't really make up any ground. I didn't like this performance. I don't think I'd bet him necessarily against this field off of any of his other efforts either. I did feel like he could get the right trip in this race, though, because he won't be part of the pace, but he won't be too far away either. 6-1, that's not an interesting price to me.
The 5 is Monsieur Coco. This horse is a stakes winner on synthetic, stakes placed on turf. They ran him blinkers off last time out at Churchill Downs, and I wonder if he just didn't like that because he was outrun and not looking comfortable early in a slow-paced race and never got involved. Some of his prior efforts are okay, and he's another horse that's tactical. He gets the blinkers back on here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I guess you could look at that last one and just say, listen, that field was better than this one. And this is a better spot for this horse. I thought he ran fine 2 starts back where he was, basically 4 wide around the track, chasing a front running winner. I don't know. He's another one here. Good price. Blinkers going back on. I could make a case for him if I tried to.
Number 6 is Zorak. The source is a stakes winner on turf in his native Chile. That was going 1.1 miles, but he sort of found himself at shorter sprints since being imported to North America and racing on Tapeta. He is very quick out of the gate. The problem is he's likely going to face pace heat from start to finish.
Yeah, I didn't like that about him. I mean, it feels like the 2 horses he's going to have to beat are going to be breathing down his neck, even if he makes the lead here. Listen, they're going 5. So I think you always want to sort of lean, or at least I do anyway, want to lean toward speed horses, because speed wins these races. I just don't know if he's going to be able to fight off the 2 favorites in here.
None Hudson is sort of an interesting case as well, sort of like a Suzak. This is a horse that we know is capable of winning a race like this. He won the William Walker at Churchill Downs 3 starts back during their spring meet. Then he went on a little bit of a layoff. He's run twice since, maybe not up to par, certainly not to the odds he was bet down to, but you could argue that off the layoff in the Mahoney, he caught a good field at Saratoga, and last time out at Keeneland, again, he was up close to the pace and tired. He can work out a good trip. I just wonder if he's already hit his peak.
I wonder about that too. This was my take on the horse anyway, Dan. I do think he's a contender in here, and I think that 10-1's a fair price. The race that he won at Churchill in May, to me, all the difference was made that day. They tried a different running style with him there. They took him back, consciously rated him, and let him run through the stretch. And it's the best race he's ever run. And then in his last 2 starts, they didn't ride him like that. Maybe it won't work going 5 furlongs anyway. I'd like to see them take this horse back and try to make one run.
The 8 is Rock and Roller, and this horse is going out for Eddie Pleaser. He's very quietly having a nice year based in South Florida, winning about 20%. Jose Ortiz is going to pick up the mountain. The last time the horse ran on turf was over this distance at Gulfstream, and he rallied from off the pace to win. He's been plying his trade on the synthetic in his last few races. Getting back to turf in a fast-paced race works for him, but he's stepping up in class.
He is. This is a tougher race for him. He's at least mildly interested in here, though, Dan. I mean, he's got, I think, the right running style for this race. He feels like he's in really good form right now. And switching back to turf, I just don't think it's supposed to be an issue. He seems like he handles this surface just fine.
Perhaps the number 9, Yes, I Am Free, is using this race as a prep for the Grade 3 Gulfstream Park Turf Sprint, a race that he's won the last 2 years. Here's his most recent effort at Parks over the summer. This is the Parks Dash. He went out and battled for the early lead. He's going to end up finishing 3rd place, second via disqualification. The horse that finished first would come back to win the Grade 3 Turf Monster with a 97 buyer. He has a lot of good races, but most importantly, he loves life at Gulfstream.
He loves this turf course. He loves this distance. He's got speed, but if he doesn't make the lead, it's not really much of an issue for him, Dan. I realize he's 7 years old now. He's off of a little bit of a layoff here, but earlier this year, he seemed like he was as good as ever.
Bad Beat Brian is a bit of an underrated sort. He's been competing in some pretty tough races on turf. And in those stakes and graded stakes races, sometimes he finds 1 or 2 better. He is a horse with proven form at Gulfstream Park, however. Now, remember, there is a new turf course at Gulfstream. We'll see how that plays. His most recent start came at Keeneland in the Grade 2 Woodford. I thought that was a strong race. He didn't get as close to the pace as usual, Mike. I think he'll be more aggressive this time.
I think he will, too. He's another one, though. The good news for him is if he winds up having to sit off it somewhere, it's not a big deal to him. He can run that way. He's in good form right now. The last 2 times, anyway, that they ran him in these, high-level allowance optional claiming races and not in stakes races, he won both of those starts. I thought he was the horse to beat in here.
XY Speed is the number 11. This horse was a winner at Gulfstream Park back in April. That race was a $35,000 beaten claimer, but he showed the ability to rally from off the pace that day. Last couple of races are just throwouts off the turf at Churchill, synthetic and stakes action, 2 starts back. Going to have to deal with a little bit of a layoff in a very tough post.
Yeah, I just thought it was a hard race for him. I mean, if you go back to, sort of early last year, he's got a couple of races that would make him, pretty tough in here. It seems like a really long time ago now, Dan. And the form that he's been in since we've seen him recently, I don't think it's good enough.
Crispy Cat's going to complete this field. He won the Texas Glitter for 3-year-olds at Gulfstream Park back in March. Hasn't won since, has kept decent company. Now, we haven't seen him since Pimlico, a race you just throw out because it was rained off of the turf. And the race prior to that, that was a pretty fast paced race, I thought, that went to closers. So this horse has some speed. He might be a part of the pace picture, but he might have to overcome a wide trip and a quick pace setup.
Yeah, I just didn't like that about him. And I agree with you. The Monmouth race, that pace was pretty solid. He got, caught up contesting it. Even the Walker 3-bet, that's the race where None Hudson just sat back and made one run. This horse was dueling the entire way. He was pretty game through the stretch. I don't like the circumstances for him here, but this horse is a little bit interesting with upside as a 3-year-old.
He's sneaky fast, and it'll be interesting to see if they really try to send him out of here. And he impacts the race by being part of the pace and not necessarily being a win contender or not. Let's take a look. Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time. I like where you're going, Mike. You're looking for a price in this race. You've always believed in the number 2 Suzak, and 5 furlongs to me over this course. If he gets outrun, he might be in trouble, but he'll be running at the end.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not expecting him to be 20-1, Dan, but maybe he'll be some kind of interesting price in this race. I want to give him a pass for the last one. Those 2 races down here earlier in the year, I thought they were deceptively good performances.
I won't take a tick less than 5-2 on the 9. Yes, I Am Free. Again, he might be using this race as a prep. He just loves Gulfstream. He has the speed to get himself in a position. He's going to be right there turning for home, and he runs very well fresh. Mike's going to go with the 2 over the 10. I'm going to go with the 9 over the 10 in our Friday DRF race of the day. It's opening day at Gulfstream. Good luck.